Good afternoon, everybody. This is Fred Bergeron with noREgreb Industries, and this is the rebroadcast, rescheduling of the podcast interview with Earl and myself. And to let you know a little bit about my guest, Earl moved to Holly Hill from Colorado. He used to work in the concrete and framing construction industry with his stepfather. He moved to Florida in 1980. He was in underground utilities, maintenance, and graphics. He spent 18 plus years in logistics and customer service. And something a little unique, he says he likes to find little piles of discarded items and turn them into unique art. And he said he's an old school photographer, and his original and true passion for art. And from an artist's perspective, he says he has absolutely no blueprint or plan. So with no further ado, please help me welcome Earl Lee. Welcome, Earl.
Welcome. Thanks. I appreciate it, Fred. Thanks for the introduction.
You're welcome. So I have a question for you, and then we'll go into your business part. We're both photographers, so I'm curious, what got you to segue from photography to home inspection? Because those are totally different industries there.
Oh, there's been a lot of space in between. Originally I wanted to pursue a career in photography. Back in the 90s is when that actually was. I taught myself photography and built my own little dark room, and then I went ahead and jumped into the college aspect, and I realized that there really wasn't a place for me in that industry because at that time, believe it or not, forensics were coming up. Forensic photography and food photography, things of that nature. Looking back, I just wasn't interested in any of that. I had more of a street photography approach, documentary, if you will, like the old Life magazine and some of the old journalistic approaches to photography. So I just told myself I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is. I know how to use the old view cameras, the kind you throw that hood over your head and hike over your shoulder, and anything that uses film is fascinating to me. So, but yeah, home inspection is very recent.
Okay, and what got you interested in home inspection during that segue process?
Well, I've always been fascinated by homes. I spent a lot of time with my stepfather in construction as a very young kid. So in my teens and all the way in 20s, 30s, I just worked in the industry at grassroots levels. And I'm just always fascinated by especially older homes in general. I just think that they're a many layer creature, and especially the older they are, they're just fascinating stories they tell. So knowing that I can pretty much fix anything in one and keep them together, as I've done over the years, lived in some pretty crazy old establishments, I just kind of started segueing towards a different line of living. And being that I'm good with houses and people, I figured I'm going to go ahead and dive into this one.
Well, good. And how long have you currently been in the home inspection business?
Technically, I've been licensed for just under a year.
Okay.
With my entire lifetime of throwing my hands on houses, and both residential and commercial, just growing up in the industry. Not the home inspection industry, but the construction, framing, underground utilities. You get savvy at these things.
Okay, so home inspection just kind of came naturally to you since you were already exposed to all these homes. You probably just figured, why not go for it?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. That, and I did a lot of research before I jumped into the business, and I found that there was a huge degree of disconnect. It can be done very well, and it can be done not so well. So I'm in the game, and definitely ready to do business.
Oh, great. And I know we spoke earlier, you have a unique inspection style, and I was wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing that unique inspection style of yours.
Oh, sure. My pleasure. I like everyone to be involved, number one. And really, when an inspector's at a house, that to me, my main objective is to eliminate anxieties. And it's not unlike having your own exam, but probably a little bit more intense because it's a huge investment. There's a misconception that home inspectors pass or fail or condemn or anything. We don't do that, or at least I don't. I like the narrative. I like to have the agent, the buyer. I like to have them all involved. That way it's a collaborative effort. It eliminates those crazy late night phone calls. It eliminates any ambiguity. Or at least I hope to minimize any anxieties. And really, it's exciting to me. I think that when a person is buying a house to make a home, we all have our responsibilities. And as a potential homeowner, I would like for them to be savvy to their house. And not only is a report just a snapshot, but there's the narrative. And that's, you don't want them to be on top of you for 8 hours, but answer those questions, show them where the tiny little grassroots things are, the main water shut off. Just be casual. A lot of alarmists are out there, and the littlest thing can be made into something giant. It's never really that way. And I think that most people in the business would agree that it's best to educate than to scare.
Oh, yeah, true. And I know too, in previous discussions, you said you also offer inspection for the seller, which is rather unusual because, inspection usually falls under the buyer. So please elaborate on that if you wouldn't mind, Earl.
Sure. Of course, it's not that popular in certain areas. So pre-listing inspection, I don't know if it makes too many people nervous, but the agent and then the seller, they can discuss that, and they can work out, the price of an inspection is quite small compared to the overall price of a home and what one person is going to make as opposed to the next person. So pre-listing, you're kind of getting everything out of the way right off the bat. There's not those last minute jitters or the unexpected. You don't have a potential buyer that is now, not only are they having to pay for an appraisal, a survey, they've got time limits, they've got those anxious moments. Then you're paying for an inspection. And maybe that inspection is done differently, shall we say, than others are. And so you have more questions than you have answers to provide in that very short time frame. So with a pre-listing inspection, you're pretty much cutting everything off at the pass. And it also, I've spoken to a few, professionals who say, when we go to an open house and that inspection is right there, their overall impression is that the seller cares and that everything's on the table. There's technicalities to the pre-listings. They're very popular in other parts of the country and in other countries. So to me, it just eliminates that last minute, oh boy stuff.
Yeah, and to me, that would be an advantage to the seller as well. I mean, and the buyer, because the buyer's not having to pay the inspection fee, and that would give the seller a heads up on any upgrades that need to be done, like if they have an old electrical panel, old electrical outlets, things like that. They know firsthand from the actual pre-listing inspection on what needs to be done. So I like that aspect of your business, Earl. Is there anything else maybe you would think why it would be advantageous to the seller to get a pre-listing inspection as opposed to the buyer?
Well, there's some gray area in that when a potential buyer comes along, when there's scary stuff like, oh yeah, you've got all aluminum wiring in your house or something really dramatic that just needs to be mitigated to a huge degree, no potential buyer wants to consume that cost, and the seller doesn't want to immediately just start reducing price on their house. And so there's still some navigating. But when it comes to a potential buyer looking at a home that needs certain things, that buyer would rather make that house theirs. And for the most part, especially from an inspector standpoint, we'd rather that the seller, unless it needs a new roof or something dramatic, we'd rather they didn't touch anything. What we find is simply a courtesy. If, granted, yes, you're going to have to change aluminum wiring. You're going to have to mitigate that. If your roof is a disaster, it has to be mitigated. Some things are on the surface. There's no way around them. There's no discussing it. It just has to be mitigated. But the potential buyer they have that nesting period where they want to make everything in that house theirs. So it often is advantageous to everybody. And another key point to that is most sellers are not going to, when they determine that certain things do need to be adjusted, they're not willing to put a bunch of money into it, and they're not willing to put a bunch of quality items into it. So it's best to collaborate, find out if that buyer really is interested in upgrading some of maybe, their conventional HVAC to a high efficiency. Because if they are, that seller is not going to put in a high efficiency for them. I don't know if that makes sense to everybody, but it's the mechanics and logistics of, making things move.
Yeah, understood. Now, from an educational standpoint, tell us the different types of inspections that you do, and then let us know the differences in the different types of inspections, if you could, please, Earl.
Oh, it's really basic, rudimentary. There's always the wind mitigation, which is wind mitigation is slightly complex. It's something sometimes you kind of have to really turn into a little tiny creature and get into places in the attic that are going to reveal the truth. They're fascinating because you find out how they did things at certain, times in that has history of the home. And so that's going to be your technical inspection that the insurance companies want to see that data. They want to see how it was built, what type of measures there are to protect your home in the event of a wind event. Central Florida is different. We're not in that high velocity wind area. You've got your 4-point inspection, which is your major components of the house. It's a snapshot of those major components. Insurance company, that's what they want to see also. 4-point and wind mitigation. Wind mitigation is going to, if it applies, you get the credits, you save money. The 4-point, the insurance companies like to see just technically that your HVAC looks good. It's a good year, running good. You make that determination. It's not our job to condemn anything. I've seen HVACs run for 30 years. I've seen water heaters last almost 40. The roofs are crazy. They last. They may get ugly, but they last. And so it's a delicate balance. The home inspection is very subjective. That's for the home, the buyer, the seller, whoever's involved, and they collaborate, whoever decides they want to share the information. Insurance companies don't necessarily look at the home inspection. That's for your nighttime reading. And so those are subjective. They can go in a lot of different directions, and sometimes they go all in the wrong directions. And that's pretty much why there's a fine line between being an alarmist and just being very practical and pragmatic. You don't want to upset the balance that exists, especially when it comes to a cracked tile and breaking a deal. Yeah. It's not pragmatic to me.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. And on that note, have you seen any weird or unusual things during your inspections that you care to elaborate about?
Some of the funniest things is just how they used to do things way back, and then compare it to how they do things in even brand new homes. And I'm a real fan of how they used to do things. And I think it's fascinating to watch and to crawl around inside of certain places to see that somebody put their hands on something so many years ago, how they did it. Those older homes that we have in Florida, they're grand to me. They're amazing. They call them stick built. When the old timers used to use hand saws and, pound nails by hand. And so, that's it. The craftsmanship of homes fascinates me, and the fact that a lot of them still stand. Homes are tough, man. That's why I'm here to kick them around a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and how has the pandemic affected your business, and how have you been able to overcome or adapt to it, Earl?
It's tricky simply due to the fact that I started in the middle of it. So there's no visiting a lot of people at once, shall we say. You're not going to walk into a real estate office and grab everybody by the ears and say, hey, let's do business. So it's tough. It's definitely going to be word of mouth. It's definitely going to be just the simple fact that my number needs to end up in your pocket, and I'm your go-to guy. What can I do for you? I understand the dynamic, uh, and my product is always on point. I don't muddy things up. That that's our product is the report, and I believe that it should always be clear, intelligent, no alarmist uh, content and straightforward. Even silly little things like the color of your report matters, because I've heard of reports that are in bright red headings and that people think everything's wrong. So with that said, I like my product to get out there. I'm ready to collaborate. I'm ready to meet as many agents that know how to think outside of the certain boxes and really just have a good time. I think that when you do something that you are fascinated by, you should really enjoy it, and everybody around you should also enjoy it. And there's no reason that buying a home should be painful. There's no reason it should be anxious. There's no reason that anybody should, even have to short circuit through this whole process. It's all about information, and the more information people have, I think the easier they are in their decisions.
Yeah, cool. So one thing that attracted me to your business when you were doing your presentation was your tagline. I love your tagline, and I put it in the flyer. But maybe for those who don't know about your tagline, about your first and your last name, if you could tell us about that, because I think it's really catchy about your tagline.
My real name is Early. Of course, first name Earl, last name Lee, and I'm never late. I'm early, and yeah, I'm painfully early most of the time. And so yeah, I used that, and I was quite surprised to find out how many people I spoke to, including just about half. Well, my home inspector was always late, or it fascinates me that people are still late in this day and age. I figured, well, why be late? Most people don't have to go too many places nowadays. Why be late? So
Right.
yeah, I'm early, never late, man. I'm early.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's original, and who'd have thought with a first and a last name like that would have been your tagline. And on the note with your last name and with your cowboy hat, you resemble Chuck Norris, who
Right.
also fought Bruce Lee in Way of the Dragon. So I'm sure you get a lot of Chuck Norris comments. If maybe you just want to talk about that a little bit, maybe between your last name and your resemblance to Chuck Norris.
That's funny. Yeah, of course, most people that have ever approached me about the Chuck thing have no idea what my name is. So the early is part of the fun. And we did kind of shape the business around Walker, Texas Ranger. Years ago, my partner, she encouraged me to grow a beard, and people just started coming out of the woodwork saying, wow, you look like Chuck Norris. So we took off with it a little bit. Actually went as far as to find an agent who, bless her heart, she tried utilizing me, but never anything solid. But the funniest thing ever was just dressing like Walker, Texas Ranger and going to Flagler Avenue in New Smyrna for Halloween and being literally mobbed for hours on end, where people were actually placing bets in the bars that I was actually Chuck in New Smyrna. And so, yeah, it was great fun. And so, kind of like as the tagline, and this is kind of how I do business. I find that there's the old saying, you kick the tires on your car to see how good it is. It's an old timer thing. So I don't see any sense why I can't kick a few houses to make sure they're good. So it's just having fun with the whole walk-in home inspector, Walker, Texas Ranger. You get me for a few hours, man. It could be better.
Now, is that a concept that just fell into place, or was it something that I guess once you put the cowboy hat on, you kind of saw where that was going?
Yeah, that was my partner. She's in. She said, let's do this, and then she ran it by some people, and they're like, well, you'd be dumb not to. So yeah, we had fun with it. It's it's fun. Yeah, it never fails to catch somebody's eye. So it'll be fun when it really catches on.
Okay, well, other than the fact that you resemble a famous celebrity, what separates you from the other home inspectors?
What separates from me the other home inspectors? No, I can't speak for everybody, but it's once again it's that narrative. It's that time that you spend. It's more than just data. It's about that huge investment. My data is going to be for the insurance companies and those that are involved is going to be dry to the point, just the facts, ma'am, no alarmist. But it's the narrative, and I want to know that the people that are potential homeowners, they're going to make that a home, and I'm going to be looking out for their kids. I'm going to be looking out for their grandparents. I'm huge on safety, and I want to make sure that everybody is going to grow in that home, make that house a home. So I'm really big on customer service and spending time with people because it's enjoyable to me, especially if they're excited about it. And huge investment, incredibly intimate, and that's how I take it. I believe that your clients should be clients for life because it's in this day and age, it's really easy to become detached, especially with the pandemic. So yeah, it's all about the hands-on approach and really actually getting to know your client and always being available and not just being a data guy.
Okay, and I like that. Now, would you care to share your rates, and if so, like maybe what the rates cover as far as your inspection process?
Well, I would say that oh man, I won't cover my rates because then I'd have to throw my glasses on. I won't look like Chuck anymore because I'd have to read. But people can call me. They can call me, and it's really easy to book. Agents can book literally within seconds. I mean, it's so incredibly easy. And if anybody reaches out to 447-463, I'm always going to take your call because I'm not going to ever say, oh, I'm so busy I couldn't take the call or return a call. I think that's huge. And so,
Okay,
my rates they depend on square feet. I go everywhere from, there's homes that are under 1,000 square feet, even 500 square feet, up to 6,000 square feet. And so, exponentially, it goes up just a tiny little bit with each one. But I'm sure I'll modify that over the years because we got to you know, keep up with costs. But they're very reasonable, especially when over time I've heard of some people who have paid, and this is down here, Florida. A fellow recently told me he paid almost 800 for a 4-point wind mitigation and a home inspection. Of course, my first question was year of house and how many square feet. And I was blown away that he paid that kind of money. And I was absolutely amazed where he found this person. I didn't ask, but then you have the opposite end of the scale where it's no different than the guy who comes and mows, blows, and goes with your yard, and they just come through for the smallest amount of money and they just kind of chomp through their job. So I believe there's a happy medium.
okay. Well, great. And I know you just recently joined uh, BNI. That's one of the largest referring business networks out there, and you're also part of 1 Million Cups. So, in addition to those, what can we as a community do to help you grow your business, Earl?
Oh, I thank you. Spread the word. Pass my number around. People, it's kind of hard to forget this head. So
Right.
I've got my rack cards. I've got information floating around. It's really easy to find me. Spread the word. There's agents out there I want to work with who I've seen their name for years. I like introductions. I like meeting people naturally. Let's give it a whirl. If I meet people who are, thinking outside that box, especially getting out of their comfort zone, hey, I'll do a free inspection. Here's my product. Let's rock on. Let's establish these relationships. Let's get down to brass tacks and do business, and let's get that momentum. Because yeah, I think it's I'm just like everybody that wants to do business. I want to see that end result work for everybody. And business is pretty much providing people with an easier way of doing things. And I don't think jobs should be made any harder or stressful, especially with agents, because I know that's a huge spoke. There's thousands of agents out there, and X amount are the ones that are growing and continuously going forward. And I'm just there for a tiny little section of time. So it's not the home inspector's job to be opinionated or to switch one side or the other or give information that just scares everybody away from the table. It's their job to inform, educate, and to be affable at the same time, you know. And if I can say that in closing, it's one of those things where I also felt like, with all the stories I heard of home inspection, and every time you mention what you do or what you're going to be, people have a tendency to look down when they hear a home inspector. It's almost like it's the guy that's going to just fail everything. And so I think that needs to change in the industry.
Well, great. And I know you shared your phone number, but would you mind sharing your phone number again and your email address so people know how to get hold of you?
Yeah, sure. My phone number is area code 386-244-7463. And I am walk-in-home-inspector@gmail.com. And if you do call my phone number, I pretty much, it's automated. You get a link to book an inspection. Of course, I will call you because it's really seamless and non-painful. You can book an inspection at 3 in the morning, and we can have the contract done within minutes.
Well, cool. And any parting words before we end this interview, Earl? Any parting words or words of wisdom you'd like to give us today?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, if you're going to start a business in the middle of the pandemic, make sure that you are definitely got your gloves on, because it's tricky out there right now, and especially when you're just starting out, it's definitely something that was totally unexpected. But I feel that it's going to be something that just rewards everybody in the end. As crazy as that sounds, I think we're just going to pull right out of this, and everybody's going to carry on, and everybody's going to be able to go back outside and meet everybody in person once again. So hang in there.
Okay. Well, great, Earl. And I guess that's going to conclude this broadcast. Thank you for being patient and having us reschedule this. I look forward to working with you in the future, Earl, and you have a happy holiday and Christmas.
Thanks, Fred. Yeah, it's always a pleasure chatting with you and seeing you in person as well, and working together, and definitely looking forward. And I appreciate this opportunity. And yeah, everybody have a really safe holiday, and everybody enjoy family.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Earl. Bye-bye.
See you, Fred.
Yeah.
Bye.